Now we're going to have Zaid talking about why adding accessibility is super impactful to the user experience. So we're just getting that ready right now.
Yeah. Okay. Ooh.
We're going to give a round of applause for Zaid. Yeah.
Thank you. I know, so accessible. I can do it. Perfect. All right. Hi, guys. Thank you so much for coming over and watching my talk on why adding accessibility is impactful to the user experience. Okay, so a little bit about myself. My name is Zaid Aboufelat. I'm also known as Wooly Wool. I joined Roblox when I was 9 years old back in 2012. I mainly do programming, working on different games such as Steep Steps, Boxing Fighter Simulator, Mermaid Castle Tycoon, Ballin', and etc. I also had the opportunity of interning summer of 2023 at Roblox under developer relations, and also had the opportunity of participating in Summer Accelerator in 2022, working alongside 4 talented creators. So, to start, what is accessibility? Accessibility is defined as products, services, and environments, or services. So it's able to be used by people with disabilities. We see it everywhere, that ramps, elevators, everything. I'm literally a Terminator, out in public, trying to find different accessible routes, especially at this venue. And according to the World Health Organization, an estimated 1.3 billion people, or 16% of the world's population, experiences significant disabilities. Our goal in making games is we want anyone to be able to play it, and adding accessibility options is putting us one step closer to doing so. There are various different types of disabilities, but I brought it down to 3 of the most common types on Roblox, which are physical disabilities, vision impairment, and hearing impairment. Games have implemented features like custom keybinds, subtitles, sound visualization, color adjustments to accommodate those with accommodate those who are disabled. But how do these accessibility options, impact that user experience? So today I'll be honing in on 3 different accessibility options: visualizing sound, coloring, and custom keybinds. So let's get to it. So imagine your game without sound. When your game is solely relying on sound, you're risking alienating your hearing impaired audience, and it puts them at a disadvantage in gameplay, which also reduces the quality of your gameplay experience. Creators can combat this through different ways depending on what your game is. So for instance, on the left side of the presentation, there's this visual that's showing you essentially this UI that's moving in a circular motion that's essentially pointing towards where an audio source is near. And as you're getting closer to it, the transparency is changing so that it's becoming a little more obvious that you're getting closer and closer to it. Another way is if there's some sort of voice acting. You can use subtitles so people are able to read what's going on. And finally, another example is, for instance, if there's an object that the player has to use, for instance, a phone, you can animate it or use particles to show that there's something happening with it. Additions like these improve the user experience because we are letting the player know that something is happening through sound visualization. And we don't want to put the player at a disadvantage when they're trying to play this game if the game is solely relying on sound. And just a pro tip. If you're playing your game and if you want to test out to see if your game can be played by those who may have hearing impairments, just set it on mute. And if you can't play it, it's kind of a problem. So you got to figure out what you have to do in order to do so, and this could be a good example of doing so. Next. So imagine viewing your game and it's in grayscale, or viewing your game on with different color combinations that may strain your eyes. I'm so sorry about that one with the blue and red, not blue and red, the green and red. If it's really hard for you to play it, or it's just straining your eyes a bit, that's a problem. And you're also risking of alienating those with vision impairments, and of course putting a disadvantage on those who are trying to play it in the gameplay. creators can combat this through various different ways, like for instance, choosing good color combinations. You don't want to have a combo that like strains your eyes when you're looking at it, like the green and red one. A like pro tip to like try to combat this is there's this really nice website called Adobe Color Picker. It's free, and you're able to put in different color combinations, and it'll give you like a really good like different options that you can use with that color that you wanted to try out. Also, secondly, for those who are colorblind, they can't really see the difference between different color combinations. So for instance, if you're like using red text on a green background, they won't be able to read that text because they can't really tell the difference. It's just kind of one color to them. So that's like one thing to consider. And also another consideration is like while you're working with like different UI frames, you might want to consider like grayscale vision, which essentially everything is just gray when they're looking at it. And if there are buttons that are of significance when looking at it, and you can't really tell the difference, for instance, if you're trying to choose a team, that's also like kind of a problem. And a lot of people can combat this by like putting different icons on like those UI things. Like for instance, I don't know, the sun team, the moon team, just depends on what your game is all about. All right. Okay. So just a little bit of background about me. I don't usually talk about this, but I thought it'd be very important to do so. I was born with the physical disability arthrogryposis. Essentially what that does is it makes it hard for me to bend my knees because I'm just so limited on that rotation. I also, like, there's just like different things I just can't do. For instance, I can't ride a bike. I can't play games that are like really fast paced. Like I'm really bad at it, but it's also kind of fun because it's really funny. But also, for like moving my character around, I can't use WASD. I always use the arrow keys to like move like my character around because it's just really difficult for me. I get really tired trying to do so. So like in many different games, creators create keybinds which are essentially set actions that are toggled to something. So for instance, like E to toggle, shift to sprint, etc. So like being physically disabled, custom keybinds like resonate with me a lot, just because I'm able to change the controls around to my own liking, and I'm able to play the games however I need to. So like imagine like you're trying to play a game and like you just can't play it because you're not able to change the controls, or the controls are just too much on you. It's just not fun. So being able to add in custom keybind settings would allow you to be able to change up how you want to play it. And it's also allowing for those who may have physical disabilities to accommodate their needs by doing so. As I brought up, like creators can combat, with the physical disabilities with like custom keybinds, for instance, like the example that's being shown on left from Rivals. And like another thing I wanted to bring up was like with the WASD, most of the time it's by default you're able to use arrow keys to move around, but sometimes like for instance if you like lock your camera or something, you can't really move your character, you're kind of just stuck there. So consider trying to implement, the arrow key movement. All right. So remember, our goal as creators is we want anyone to be able to play our game. And as I brought up, adding accessibility options is putting us one step closer to doing so. And by doing your due diligence as creators and adding those accessible options for players, like the examples I brought up and different methods that are out there, it enables them to fully experience your games in ways that accommodate their disabilities. I hope this lightning talk enlightened you on different ways of adding accessibility to your game. After 2 weeks from now, I better see accessibility in all of your games, all right? All right? Thank you so much. Awesome. Q&A? All right. Any other questions? All right. Yeah.
Really enjoyed your presentation. What are some of the best examples on Roblox Live right now that do accessibility really well, just so we can all learn?
I have to say, like right now, I enjoyed playing Rivals a lot, just because I'm able to like change the controls around and like play it like how I would like to, even though I'm like really bad at like first-person shooters. But like it made it a lot simpler for me when I was like trying to change around to different settings. I know Bad Mrs. also has like a bunch of like different keybind settings that you can do. Those are like kind of the first two that come to me that like kind of like affect my like gameplay. So, yeah. Yes, Lauren. Yeah. So like the first thing that kind of came to mind when you brought that up was I know Northwestern University had this like whole video on like different vision impairments. It just kind of gave you like a glimpse of like someone that may like not be able to like see like their vision is like completely different. So I found that to be really helpful, especially when I'm trying to design my games and like decide where I want to put the UI or how big I want the UI to be. I know for like a lot of different games, UI buttons on like mobile or even on like desktop, it's just kind of like really tiny to press on, which kind of does make it a little bit harder for me to like play different games. So that was kind of the first one I thought of. I know there's like this website, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it also kind of gave you like a list of like do's and don'ts, like working with like different like disabilities and what you can consider. I think it was like really oriented towards like creating games. So I wish I knew what it was. I would totally like link it. Any other questions? Nope.
A round of applause for you.